Okay, maybe. Hello, check, check. 1 2 1 2 3 check. 1 2 1 2 3 check. 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 check, 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 check. Mic check, mic. Hello. Hopefully there is sound now. I'm seeing green dots and stuff is happening. But now it could be too loud. I don't know. Um, it's no longer monitoring through the monitor, but it's like fire red. So give me a thumbs up if there's audio. It's got to be something going on. If it's too quiet, let me know, and I'll. I mean, I could crank it more, but it says that I'm peaking right now. But I guess I shouldn't pay attention to that and pay attention to this instead. But yeah, if whoever's here can give me a thumbs up and let me know. I'm guessing that there is audio because the green is there. I could probably go up a little bit more. Possibly. Hello. Take those off, maybe. But yeah, somebody just pop up a thumb if you can hear me. Can you hear me? That's on. Bring that up. But oh, there goes my cat. But yeah. So since that one didn't have audio, I'll go back. And I'm probably not going to know if this one's got audio until later. I will talk about. Yeah. Okay. All right. Since you couldn't hear anything before, the beginning of my diagnosis was what I had been talking about, and it started in 2007. I had transitioned from active duty to National Guard to try to become normal. Now, if you're new to this, this is basically about me and the things that I've tried to do and that I am currently trying to do to understand, my mental state. But anyway, while I was in Oregon in the National Guard, they just threw medications, just bam, At one point, I was taking Seroquel, Xanax, Ambien, Zoloft, and my back and my knees had gone out, and they had Percocet and morphine on top of that. So throughout the day, I was taking 7 pills, rotating between morning, noon, and night, and it eventually broke me down. It wasn't good. But they pushed it on me. They wanted soldiers who were coming back to be pushed through all this stuff, and there was no psychotherapy. that was a big thing. Now that I think about it, there was no push to go speak to someone. Now, the thing about the military is it's kind of like a lottery ticket. Nobody has the same experience. It's not good for everybody. And the things that you go off and you go do, none aren't necessarily good for everybody. So some people, they have the winning ticket. And, they're the hero. They got all this. They got that. They got the whole shebang. They got out. They got a book deal. They got a great job. They got all that stuff. And then you got, the second winners who did all right, made no waves. And, they came out and they were able to get a career. And that was great. And then you got the bottom half who had a horrible experience. They had horrible deployments. They had, just the worst of the worst when it all compiled together. And trauma not only happens during war, but it also happens when you're in your home station. I mean, I can remember one of our soldiers being a witness for a rape that happened. So, yeah, things like that happen, but there's no one to talk to. There's no one to go to. In the military, it's a big suck it up attitude. In the VA, there's just medicine. Just throw medicine on it. Well, I had started showing other symptoms, and I guess I'd had the symptoms throughout my life, but I did not recognize it. Later on, that was when the diagnosis of the bipolar 2 came into play. And it was from a civilian doctor that I was seeing, and he said it was difficult to diagnose or define because due to the DSM 5 that was released in 2013, the diagnosis or the symptoms for the diagnosis are similar. So you can fall into one category but actually be in another, or you could be in both. I mean, it's hard for them to find. Well, we started treating the bipolar stuff, and of course, the meds that they put me on initially were your basic Zoloft's, and you get it. None of it was helping. None of it at all. And not until last year, 2019, or in November, I finally got on to lithium, which did help. It made everything better. Not every single thing, but it was a eureka moment. It was one of those, yes, keep that. Let's stay with this, and then we can figure the rest out, later on as we're, going through this. And once I got onto the medication, though, that, I began wondering about, the different aspects of it. Well, my diagnosis of bipolar 2, the definition of the bipolar 2 is dysphoric hypomania. Yes, I have websites up so I can pull. I can remember all this stuff. Dysphoric hypomania. Now, through the years, I have been told that hypomania is the complete opposite of bipolar 1 with mania. So supposedly I go down when the others go up and everyone else is normal. That is what I was told. That is not real. That is not the case at all. Hypomania and mania, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, are extremely similar. The difference is, if you were to put it into a graph, basically, you have your normal mood, right? Or into a line graph. You have your normal mood, which is the baseline. Normal people usually have, they stay kind of in the up area, and then, they may have a down, and then they come back, right? Bipolar 1, they drop way down, and it could be 2, 3, 4 weeks of down. And then they will fly all the way up to the top side. And it could be 4, 5, 6 days of just straight wide open. Hypomania, same thing as bipolar. Drop down 2, 3 weeks down in the gutter. We come up above the normal line, but we don't go as high as the manic. Basically, where we sit, and it'll last the same amount of days, 4 to 6 days, but where the hypomanias sit is functional. So, like, there's been articles that have been coming out on Facebook about functional depression, functional this, functional that, whatever. What I've been told has been completely wrong. That I'm supposed to be down on the floor and these people are supposed to be up here. We are two totally different categories. We have nothing in common. And people who are bipolar 1 are like, oh, well, you're just bipolar 2. No. It sucks both ways. We're in the same boat, and the boat is sinking. It's just some of us are a little more together. You know what I mean? So it's still bad in both ways. I made a video on Tuber. That is the website where the quest of the mental began. I was just documenting how my day would go with the changes, with being depressed and anxious and the mania and all those things. And then, of course, how it is when I take my medication and, all that stuff. So that's where this kind of came from. And due to PTSD and a brain injury, I have memory lapses, which I mentioned in the first video, but right now I just had one. I was in the middle of describing tuber thing, and I was going to go to something else, and that happened. So, but again, that is part of, I've got to figure this stuff out because it drives me crazy. Just things fall out, and then, of course, mania and depression. It's very taxing. But the only really cool thing that I found as far as the descriptions of bipolar and bipolar 2 and manic depression, mania, is, of course, where mania comes from. The word mania as a deity. It's Roman or Etruscan mythology. They believed her to be the goddess of ghosts and spirits and all that stuff, the undead, all those things, mother of the layers. But she was also the goddess of insanity and madness. So I think it's interesting that all these things that all these mental health issues that people have. I mean, they've had for millennia. I mean, probably since probably since the single cell organism. Since we climbed out of the primordial ooze, people had just been fucked up. We're just fucked up creatures just right out the gate. What's wrong with Larry? This. So I thought that was amusing that things go back so far, and I'm sure it goes further. I mean, I'm one dude. I've got so much other crap going on. I've got a whole tablet here recording something separate for a whole nother thing, and phone. I got stuff happening, so just bear with me. The mania, like even the origin of mania is like, as far as I think dictionary wise or the definition wise or whatever, when it was made, was like 1350, 1400, Middle English, Latin, Greek, mania, madness, akin to I can't even say it, akin to mind. That's when it became like psychiatric terminology, or used to describe, excessive excitement or enthusiasm, craze. That is the Merriam-Webster dictionary version of mania. Also, when you go there, the second version just says manic disorder. I believe when you go there, that's when you go into the manic depressive, which manic depressive branches off into the bipolar and bipolar 2, cyclothymia, which most people confuse cyclothymia with ADHD in kids. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but it's usually the kind of the way it's described is the precursor. Usually young teenagers and adolescents seem to show signs of that before they go into the bipolar stages. Manic disorder, that's nothing. I don't think that's what I was going for. Mania. Yeah, the cyclothymia, I don't touch on very often in my tuber videos because that's not where I'm at. I am on the further end of the spectrum, but I can, reading it or kind of getting a small grasp on that, from what studies show, if you are able to catch someone in the early stages of manic depressive episodes or bipolar, things of that nature, which is the cyclothymia, if you're able to catch it, early psychotherapy is able to counter or ease the adulthood of what's to come. Some don't even go into full bipolar. Some just don't even, they don't graduate. they don't graduate to the next level, which is a good thing, but it requires early intervention of psychotherapy. You can go to Google Scholar and you can actually look up the study on it. I thought I had it pulled up, but I do. No, I don't. I found it earlier. But anyway, it was a study done over a 15-year period. So they took, adolescents who showed signs and they studied them for 15 years, and each one it varied. It was like 1,600 people, and they found that the early intervention happened. Which, as I said, there is no psychotherapy for me. I have not really had psychotherapy. I've had one therapist, and during one of the sessions, this was in Mississippi, which is where I live, and it was, well, fuck it, I'll say it. It was at the Gulf Coast VA is where I was at, and I was in their psychiatry department. I had a doctor that I was seeing, and I thought he was a great guy. Thought he was a great psychiatrist, psychologist. I thought he was great at what he did. And I let out some information about my childhood. During my childhood, some trauma had happened to me, and I did not know how to deal with it. And I didn't realize that it was how bad everything was until I became an adult, and I just never dealt with it. Well, he showed a distinct interest in it, and I never went back and saw him again. And I don't mean a professional interest as far as, tell me, how does that make you feel? Why, things like that. No, it was a very sinister, did you like it? But it was horrible. So I've never been back. I get away from that VA, and now I go to the one that's in Jackson, and there's troubles with that one in itself. But right now I do have a good doctor, and they had psychotherapy lined up. As I had mentioned, it was supposed to be online, because they don't want to pay for 30 minutes away. Apparently they cost too much there. So they hooked me up with an online therapist, but apparently there's not one that is in the central time zone. So I still don't have a therapist. I have a psychiatrist who prescribes me medications, and he listens to a few of my issues, and he adjusts medicines, as the problems come, but that's really it. So I feel kind of alone, and anybody with mental health issues feels alone. It's nothing new. It is not anything, extraordinary. But the depression, I wanted to kind of talk about that because it's part of both. It's part of the post-traumatic stress. It's part of the bipolar side. They go hand in hand, and the depression and anxiety are just going to be there. That's just going to happen. I do not know if I am, as they say, clinically depressed. My situation is depressing, but only to me. Like if someone else was here in this house and they had the gear that I have, and all this. I mean, I have a lot of crap here, electronic wise. I mean, it would be heaven for a lot of people. It's just, for me, it's depressing because of the isolation, because of I live in the woods, basically. I mean, it is a decent house. It's long, I could split it into two houses if I wanted to, but it just sucks being, so far away. But fits of depression hit. And, of course, the clinical version of depression is one of those things where it's like it's depression of sufficient severity to be brought to the attention of a physician and to require treatment. And then they talk about major depressive disorder. I don't know if I have that per se. Like, I don't need a doctor, like, every time I get depressed. but it happens a lot. And I really don't deal with it well. Usually I just go to sleep, but you can only sleep for so much, eventually you've got to get up and you've got to go do things. So some classify it as just situational depression, which is from something that happens or around you. And then they mention grief, but grief is, we all know what that is. But the situational is kind of what I feel mine is. But there's been times where I've been out of this situation in a completely better one altogether and still been depressed. So I don't know. There was a thing, what was it? Major depressive disorder, a mood disorder having a clinical course involving one or more episodes of serious psychological depression that lasts two or more weeks each. Do not have intervening episodes of mania or hypomania characterized by a loss of interest, of pleasure in almost all activities. So, the major depressive disorder is like by itself. It is not part of bipolar or anything else. It is a disorder on its own. I don't have just that. But I do have depression. The anxiety, sometimes the lithium exacerbates that, which sounds really weird because lithium, is supposed to help level off, but certain levels of lithium can create an excitedness. I forget how they actually list it. It's not full-on lithium toxicity. Lithium toxicity is dangerous. Like, you can't go take lithium and like, man, I feel bad, pop, I still feel bad, pop. Like, you can't do that at all. When you get onto lithium, you've actually got to go and you got to get blood work done, and they got to make sure that your levels are correct, because if they're not, then you can end up in like just a really bad place. It can kill you. I actually have a friend who committed suicide by overdosing on his lithium medication on purpose. So it's not anything to play with. And, I'm sure, people make jokes about it being, the miracle pill and things like that, since it came around, what is it? Lithium carbonate or lithium citrate? No, lithium citrate is like a thing, like if you sniff it, that's like the aerosol thing or something. But yeah, so it's a heavy medication. Like it will, as they say, it will fuck you up. But I notice on my dose, the level that I take, I will have a manic episode happen towards the evening. And I will have to take something in order to bring me down. Now, this is controversial in psychology and amongst people, mainly because it is one medication included with basically a narcotic medication, which is a benzodiazepine. A lot of people are trying to steer away from the use of benzodiazepines. And I get it. They're freaking people chomping those things like they're going out of style. The one that I take is Klonopin. It is the middle, the little guy, really. And when I have that manic rush where it feels like I just cannot stop, and it's like 11, 12 o'clock, almost 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just cannot get down, I'll take a 0.5. Eventually, everything kind of slows down a bit, and then I can go to bed. They've tried me on other medications. One is brand new. It's called Roserum. It's very expensive. For the VA, it's not that expensive, but it is one of the most expensive medications that they prescribe. I actually had to get the what is it? The director of medicine. He had to actually sign off in order for me to get it. And that medication is a sedative hypnotic. Now that sounds like, ooh, great time. It's nothing. It works on, it does not work on your receptors, the GABA receptors, like a tranquilizer does. It's supposed to work with your natural, circadian rhythm. It does not work on me. I can take it when I'm ready to go to bed, tired. I will take it. I will wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning for just no reason. Just I'm awake and cannot go back to sleep. And with the other medication, though, with the Klonopin, I am able to stay asleep for a extended period of time. So if I get tired around, or if I want to go to bed at 9 and my body doesn't want to, but I know I need to, I've got to, that works. The Roserum does not work for me. So, and that's going to be a whole nother topic later on. The aspect of every mental health patient not only is an individual, but sometimes what the DSMs say, what they suggest, sometimes it's not the rule of thumb for everybody. And you've got to navigate each individual. But that'll be for the next one. I really hate that I took so long to do this second video. I had 2 VA appointments come up, along with still trying to go to the gym. I had a crash after a hypomania episode, and then there was a depressive episode that I kind of came out of, which is today. And I'm not completely out of it, but I'm well enough to be able to get on here, mess with all this gear, and get this running, get the tablet running, get this going. And tomorrow I shift gears because I have a band coming over to record some songs. So I'm burning the candle at both ends, as they say, because I'm running through my mess, running through this mess, and then running through their mess. But I appreciate everybody who came by and let me know that if the mic was working or not working. I wish everyone well, and just take care of yourself. And that's all I want, just for people to be happy and, fuck. That's it. Later.